gentlemen of the press, let me thank the whip. I see ranking for Defense and Interior, ranking for Defense and Interior, and ranking for Finance, and my colleagues in leadership and members of Parliament join us address you this morning. The caucus attention has just been drawn to some efforts and attempts by the Nana Akufo-Addo Bawumia power-drunk autocratic regime resort to intimidation and ominous, desperate acts to get the obnoxious, insensitive e-levy before Parliament pass. Having failed in many respects to get the load e-levy in the wake of popular national resistance led by the NDC gallant MPs of 137, the Nana Addo Dankwa government has now resorted to very crude and, for all intents and purposes, democratically shameful, disgraceful tactics to attempt to reduce, by all means possible, necessary, including foul, to reduce the numbers of the NDC minority of 137, hoping that that will aid their effort to railroad the e-levy into law. What possibly can be described as a sickening display of desperation by a sitting government, which is seeking to push through, as I've indicated, a very undesirable punitive double taxation measure of e-levy down the throat of Ghanaians. And we have maintained our opposition to it and will continue to do so through its second reading until its third reading and passage into law. We will simply not support e-levy. They are now acting through their devious agents, notably Frank Davids, who is now seeking to injunct the Member of Parliament for Assin North, the Honorable James Jackie Quayson, from holding himself out as a lawfully elected Member of Parliament for the good people of Assin North. This latest act of desperation, we believe, has the tacit endorsement of the Attorney General and Minister for Justice. And this matter of summoning him before a criminal court for prosecution comes at a time an appeal and an application for stay of execution filed against the Cape Coast High Court's annulment of the 2022 Assin North parliamentary election is still pending before the Court of Appeal. And therefore, where is respect for the rule of law? Where is respect for the hierarchical authority of our court structure, in particular the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court? As though the above desperate machinations are not enough, we believe, upon the instructions of the President and the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Godfrey Dami, the police administration called one of the lawyers who represented the Honorable James Quayson in respect of the Assin North parliamentary election petition, inviting him to make the Honorable Quayson available for service of a criminal charge on him for prosecution. We all know what is it the 1992 Constitution provides for service to members of Parliament for purpose of civil or criminal proceedings. That also has been ignored and disrespected. Inviting him to make the Honorable question available for service as I've indicated. Our information indicates that the said charge borders on an allegation that Honorable Question committed a crime by signing a declaration to the Electoral Commission to the effect that he was qualified to stand for election as an MP. It must be placed on record that the legal propriety of the said declaration made by the Honorable James Question was challenged at the time he submitted same to the Electoral Commission, whereupon the Electoral Commission invited Honorable James Question and his detractors for an investigation of the said complaint. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, be interested in what I'm coming to say next. There was a complaint on a matter of his eligibility. The Electoral Commission subsequently determined the matter. The Electoral Commission subsequently determined the matter in favor of Honorable James Question after he had adduced sufficient evidence to satisfy the Electoral Commission that he was very much qualified to stand for election, whereupon he was cleared to contest the elections. So these are facts, verifiable facts. In the light of this fact, how can it be properly contended that Honorable James Question criminally used a false declaration? Criminally used a false declaration. A declaration determined by the institution established for that purpose, which made a determination on that matter favorable to him, to deceive the Electoral Commission in order to stand for the said election. Secondly, without prejudice, the issue of whether or not per Article 94(2)(a) of the 1992 Constitution, I believe that is what is before our competent courts, whether Honorable James Question was qualified to stand as an MP, is a question of law, which is pending before the Court of Appeal. And by all standards, it stands next to the Supreme Court in terms of judicial hierarchical authority and mandate. Before the Court of Appeal, KEPCOs, as well as the Supreme Court, in various suits, also an application for stay of execution of the KEPCOs High Court's annulment Assin of parliamentary election filed by Honorable Question is still pending before the Court of Appeal. Under the circumstances, the lawful and reasonable thing for the Ghana police, the ruling New Patriotic Party government, and their surrogates to do is to abide by the decision of the Court of Appeal on these processes as their modicum contribution to the respect for the principles of rule of law. Any attempt by the police to prosecute Honorable James Question on the conclusion or assumption that he was not or is not qualified to contest the 2020 parliamentary election, pending a final decision by the Superior Court, is only prejudicial of the Court of Appeal and therefore contemptuous of the Court of Appeal and an obvious disrespect to the rule of law and the rule to respect an independent arbiter of the judiciary. It is obvious that the desperate Akufo-Addo government, the Attorney General Office, and the police administration are acting in bad faith to get an unfair advantage in Parliament for the Nana Akufo-Addo Bawumia government in its unbridled quest to pass the unpopular insensitive A levy, which remains a major disincentive to the development of our digital economy and an apparent disregard for their own quest for a cash-light economy. We don't want to believe, neither do we want to accept, that they want to use the courts to tilt the balance of power. What the people of Ghana decided in December 2020 was to vote for a balanced hung parliament of 137, 137. I pray that our court and judges will be courageous enough to stand by fact and by law under these difficult trying circumstances of a desperate political administration which has now admitted that without an e-levy, the economy will collapse. I don't know that 5 years haven't built an economy. It can collapse without a levy. The Gombe said that when you build a house with saliva, it collapses with dew. So maybe the house was built with saliva. So when you see dew, then you are sure that the house cannot stand. A declaration, clearly a statement or declaration by Honorable James Quayson at any material time that he was qualified to contest the 2020 parliamentary election in his personal application and or conclusion of the law on the facts and does not qualify as a statement of facts to which truth or falsehood may be implied. Applications or conclusions of law may only be right or wrong, but can neither be true nor false. A legal position adjudged by the courts to be wrong has never been a basis for prosecuting a person who asserted to it. Otherwise, the moment a person's position of the law and fact is dismissed by a court of law, that person immediately becomes liable for perjury. That, in our opinion, is ridiculous and preposterous, to say the least. No wonder the courts were reliably informed, stood firm, strong and courageous this morning to refuse their attempt to get a bench warrant to get the Honorable Quayson arrested so that surreptitiously they may be able to serve him some kind of process that they have been struggling with. We are law-abiding citizens, but there must be respect for the rule of law and respect for the sanctity and authority of the judicial organ of state. The will of the good people of Assin North who voted for Honorable James Quayson. Sovereignty, they say, resides in the people. The people of Assin North decided that he will be their member of parliament. And this cannot be subverted by the desperate maneuvers of President Nana Akufo-Addo and his agents. We wish to serve notice to the Nana Addo Dankwa government that the minority, our gallant 137, will remain determined, resolute, and decided. We are not supporting e-levy, and we will not vote for e-levy, no matter what. It's not for nothing that few days ago, I stated strongly that you don't procure cooperation through intimidation, harassment, and oppression. You don't procure cooperation through those tactics. Because we believe the e-levy, as I've indicated, is regressive, is punitive, it will not advance the cause of our country. We are now hearing many things being said, and I know the whip is watching me. He wants me to keep to my text. I know that, but he knows that I will digress from my text. If for nothing at all, the Akufo-Addo government and Ghanaians must thank this minority. But for us, will there be public engagement and town hall meeting on e-levy? But for us. But for we standing for principle and saying that don't take this under certificate of urgency, which resulted in those excesses. So consultation, they must thank us for giving them an opportunity to reach out to the Ghanaian public and to consult. In any case, it's only an afterthought and a corrective measure by them. But at least we are happy that we led the way for them to do what is appropriate. So, Mr. Whip, I'm back to your text. President Akufo-Addo and his, they should not think that Ghanaians can be forever cowed by the imposition of this atmosphere of fear, high-handedness, intimidation of a political, strong minority. And as you hear them, I've heard some of them say that they should be comfortable with their 137 plus 1. We are comfortable with our 137, and we are optimistic of an increased number in the foreseeable future, in the coming days. So the Ghanaian people should be assured that this fast happiness will not be browbeaten by these cowardly acts of intimidation and harassment and persecution by a desperate political administration to get us give in. We simply will not support e-levy, nothing more. Yeah. We shall continue with all our might to resist these desperations of the despotic Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo regime and those use of crude Machiavellian tactics to reduce our numbers without respect to the rule of law and respect to our court hierarchy and its authority as an independent, neutral arbiter on these matters. Any attempt to use the courts to tilt the balance of power will be the gravest danger to the sustenance of our multi-party democratic system when we lose faith and confidence in the independent judiciary. So we pray and hope that they will not use the courts to tilt the balance of power. We continue to uphold the values of democratic norms and principles and its ethos. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, we just needed to update you on the happenings in respect of one of our colleagues, the Honorable Kwesen, who is now been declared wanted by them because they want, by all means, to reduce our number by 1. And we know by all means we are 137. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleagues from the media.